All right, welcome to Matrix Breakers. We have Jonathan Mozenter with us here, and he is going to share with us some great wisdom around self-awareness and awakening, and honestly, just so many great things. I'd love for him to get into various different topics with me today. Say hi for us, man.
Hey, excited to be here.
Right on. For you, Jonathan, like what's been coming up for you lately? What's been significant for you, maybe even personally, been something that's profound for you right now?
Attunement is the word that's coming up for me, and I'm in a really exciting place. I'm expanding kind of my business, and I'm really like learning to attune to what my core audience is interested in knowing about because I have a great depth of wisdom. So I just want to tell you a little bit about my backstory and
Please.
why attunement is so important right now. Because I had a period where I awakened to the conspiracy nature, like the false flags, the mind control, and my story is like that. I had a period of 3.5 years where I went really deep. I found a lot of other people had really sharp discernment, figured out these things seem true, these things I'm not so sure about. Some people think a lot of weird ideas and are paranoid and like shuffle through that kind of space. And then
Yeah.
I asked the universe, how can I help? How can I help? And I was meditating a lot at the time. And what happened was I was getting this kind of intuition, sharpened intuition, where I was connecting to this higher energies. And it started guiding me around to study with a whole bunch of different teachers about transformation. And my background's already in transformation. I've studied organizational development as a career path, which is kind of codes around how people come together to manifest what they want to manifest. And
Mm.
the message was, hey, John, then you're really open minded. You happen to have no kids. You're a bright guy. You're single. Why don't we train you up on all these different things? And then when the time is right, you can go and share that wisdom with the audience and help the world transform into a better place. And I actually stopped looking at all the news. I got rid of the mainstream news, the alternative news, and I just checked it like once in a while because I got so focused on my studies. And now I'm like ready to give my gifts to the world. And so now I'm coming back and attuning to what exactly people are needing right now and which of my vast knowledge of transformation tools and self-awareness tools and manifestation tools does the world need right now. So you've been plugged into your audience. So I think it's a perfect match. I'm excited to hear because you're plugged in with all these movers and shakers who are doing things, and I'm ready to give my wisdom and yeah, create
Yeah,
collaborations.
that is amazing. Actually, it's funny. So me and Jonathan, we haven't even really gotten to check in or catch up. We just jumped right into this. So funny that he's even saying that because I've been feeling the exact same way. I think the last like year and a half or so, I did a similar thing where I just tuned out of a lot of the news, and that means both news. Of course, I catch a couple of my love some of the great podcasters that are out there, and they cover some news here and there and just like what's happening in the world. Like I stay checked in with like culture a lot of the time, but
Mhm.
exactly what Jonathan is saying, which is going more inward and finding how is it that I create the best possible scenario for the world and for not just for yourself, but for the world. And that has been pinging on me as well. And for me, of course, living in Colorado, just being able to like experience nature and go out and love what God's already created and appreciating what's in front of us in a way and being present as possible has come up for me, especially over the times when we can get outdoors and stuff. A lot of the fall and winter gets a bit too cold for a lot of the exploration. It gives us a time to like self-reflect. And I've always talked about that on the podcast a little bit as to how Colorado works and the climate here. But yeah, that's pretty amazing, man. Like a lot of people tuning in, they want to hear sensationalism, right? They want to hear, oh my gosh, what's the next thing that happens? And ultimately, what I have found is that people become experts in the wrong thing. It's the whole COVID thing and the vaccines and all the chaos, like genuine paranoia. That was insane. Like we lived through this crazy time. And I think what happened was, and this includes myself, like a lot of us became experts at these deep conspiracy rabbit holes. And we lost touch with, wait, what are we actually creating? What are we actually building? And I
Mm.
guess a great question for you is what in your search for yourself, I think a good question might be, what is coming up for you in terms of how does somebody start to build their own life? You came to your own realization, but do people have to have a dark place that they get to and realize they have to turn out of that? Or can people just awaken to the reality that they are in the matrix, even if they think they're learning about how corrupt everything is, they're still in the matrix, because it's like they're still focused on it. They're focused on the negative. How does somebody awaken to the whole idea of self-awareness in that sense of where they're actually at, what they could actually contribute to the world?
That's a great question. Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit about what you're talking about. There's this tendency, people who come more aware. That's a form of first of all, the word awakening is an interesting word. And people say, "Are you awakened? I had my awakening this or that." And I'm always like, what did you awaken to? Awakening just means more awareness, and more awareness is good. And what's beautiful thing is there's always more things to get aware of. In Buddhism and Eastern traditions, I'm a studied of a tradition called Ma Mudra. It's a high level Tibetan practice. And in that practice, the highest teaching is about reification, which reification is to make things solid. That suffering happens because we've decided this is what life is, and then we're stuck. And so actually reification is another word for openness. So staying open to keep awakening and keep learning and having a continuous growth mindset's really important. So one of the most important things I learned, I think a lot of people go down these rabbit holes, they feel like they're a victim. Oh, these people are out to get me, they're fooling me. And I get that. I have a compassionate perspective. I've been there, I've held those perspectives. But what I learned was, in order for me to really feel my most energized self, and I want to come back to it, I want to talk about energy because I studied with a lot of energy teachers. But one of the things that really helped increase my energy is to let go of this victim mindset. And how I was able to do that is something what I call one of my core talents is synthesizing and being able
Mm.
to, I call myself a psycho-spiritual stack master, because what I like to do is study a lot of different techniques and I put them in a very specific order to help manifestation happen more effortless. And I'm going to talk about one right here that really can be really life altering. And it's an idea about owning your life. And it starts with the premise of I got real reflective and asked like a big question, like, how can anything exist? And I really went there, and after like endless contemplation, I came to a really simple answer, which is that question is impossible to answer, because no matter what answer I came up, I'd always be like, who created that? And who created that? And I came to a solution that I think is reasonable, that everything is magic. Literally, existence is magic. It's like default. Somehow we experiencing stuff. And I realized, when I realized, hey, if I put that first, that everything's a magical experience, it's somehow a gift, it made me feel better in life, rather than thinking, oh my God, there's some oligarchs trying to trick me, is like the first thing I think in the morning. So if I wake up and think, oh, somehow I'm in this magical land and I have my power back. And like now, instead of it being like I'm a victim and someone's doing this, like maybe I decided to do this concept called owning your life. So that's like getting your power back. Like a lot of people feel disempowered because it seems so crazy. But what if you just own your life and be like, hey, I chose to be this character. I chose to be Jonathan Mozenter, a human on Earth during this crazy time when there's a lot of transitions and there's all these kind of different, there's these archaic like divide and conquer control system. And now I'm working with a bunch of people around the world, and we're looking to shift things and make things more magical. It's already magical in a way because we get to be alive and experiencing stuff. But so when you start from a position of power and I turn it like into a fun game, then life's a lot more interesting. Rather than moping around, I can't believe there's all these problems on Earth. It's, I wonder what's wrong. I wonder what I can do with this, and assessing what's going on. That's one really important perspectival shift that I haven't heard a lot from people, that I think really helps raise people's energy. And one of my energy teachers helped me learn is that our energy that we bring like actually determines what kind of perspectives we have. If you're just moping around thinking how awful everything is, that's going to affect your whole life and your decisions, versus if you have a more optimistic perspective, then you're going to have a different set of experiences. So that's a good
Yeah.
starting place, I think, for people.
So you said something, was it like a spiritual stacking? You said something earlier. What was that
Yeah,
called?
yeah. Oh yeah, yes. I call myself a psycho-spiritual stack master.
Psycho. I want to write that down. That's funny. Okay, cool.
Sure.
I love that.
Yeah,
Stack
and
master.
why
And what do you
why
mean
do
by
I
stack master? Like, what is the stacking?
yeah,
What does
or
that look like?
stacking and weaving. All right, so what
Okay.
I'm talking about is different distinctions and modalities and ways of looking at things. So first off, one of the things I don't want to do is, yes, I think life is magical, but that doesn't mean that people aren't suffering. So when I say one form of stacking is stacking of perspectives. and how do you stack them. So you don't there's something called like spiritual bypassing, like where that's a tech term where people like go meditate and they're like everything's just fine and perfect, and they just ignore that it's not perfect. And so I want to delineate what I'm saying is not actually bypassing. It's actually a form of stacking. I'm ordering things. So I'm starting from a place of life is magical and a gift as a baseline observation. And yes, there also then from that frame, I'm also assessing what's going on in my own life and the world in a very accurate matter. And by accurate, also includes being able to take a lot of different perspectives on things. Now, stacking could also have to do with, for example, like I talk a lot about energy. So, in order to get, there's a lot of ways to get your energy up. So, for example, I have like multiple techniques. So, one I talked about was I use this thing called owning your life, and I use a technique called conscious language or decrees, which are short, simple phrases that kind of get deep into your being, and it's a way of integrating things faster. So I'm using that as like one perspective. But then like I will do like I've studied with some chi masters and I get my energy up. And so what the chi does is it amplifies energy within you. So I've learned to pick like certain qualities. So for example, let's say I want to go about the day with enthusiasm, but I want to get focused because I want to get a lot of stuff in there. So I will bundle up those energies and then I will put them into my system using this chi technique. So now I've owned my life, I've bundled up a couple energies I want to bring, and then I've used another technique to get it into my nervous system. So I've already stacked three things. And so the more things you can stack in an intelligent way, the more efficient and effective. And it feels like magic, but magic to me is just alignment with what is. So I
Mm.
remember I just wanted some about this idea of what is awakening? What is awakening? And I think that's an interesting question. And as I said earlier, you're always awakening to more and more of what is. And I've decided it's like really fun to discover all the little nuances of life and keep awakening to the new things and enjoy the continuous learning process because I feel like that's
Mhm.
aligning how life is and seeing it from a more optimistic perspective than rather than like struggles or contextualize things as problems and stuff.
Yeah, so so I'm writing notes down because I'm learning, okay? I'm learning, and I hope people are honestly learning too. So when you is that like a morning routine? What do you find yourself doing these meditative affirmations in a way where you're doing the stacking and you're saying things like, "I want more enthusiasm in the day as well as productivity, get the things that I need done today." Is that a part of are you drinking a beverage in the morning? Are you journaling it? Do you write it? Or is it more like like outside sharing? What does that look like?
Great, great questions. Yeah, there's multiple. First off, I want to talk about what I think is, and then I want to come back to morning routines important. So let me earmark that
Okay.
and come back to it. But I want to
Yeah.
actually focus on what is like what's the best way you can be, because that has back to this question of awakening. Like, what is the most optimal way of being in life? And I've come to a way that I think is simple but profound. It's to be like really in the moment. Like we hear that a lot. Let's be in the now. And there's a
Mhm.
truth to it. And the truth is like to be in the moment in a way where you're really present to what's actually happening right now with you and everyone else to the best of your abilities. And then how can you be of service in that particular moment? So it's actually a more contextual way. Just by being really present, you soak in the energies of the moment and you're able to adapt to what's actually needed. So it's rather than it being a fixed way of being all the time, like enlightenment's always this. I'm like, if I had to simplify it, it's more about actually being really present and being of service the best you can. And that will keep changing and unfolding as you become a better instrument and the more present you're able to be. Now, I do think morning routines are really important. You do want to start your day off in the way that's going to be optimal for you. And as a teacher, I tend to, sure, I have my techniques, but there's a lot of ways to raise your energy. I like the term coherent energy is really important. And by that, I think there's like a raising of the energy, but then you want to align it with what's actually happening. So, like, the So there's raising of energy, raising. Of course, you could have an energy drink or a caffeine, or you could do some chi or yoga or stretching, or put on some like music. I like a certain music gets me all excited, and so there's a lot of ways to raise your energy. But then there's the second piece, which is the coherent piece now, and directing it. How are you going to raise your energy and then direct it in an intelligent way? And this gets into this alignment piece. What are you trying to accomplish that day? If you're trying to go to the beach and chill out, that's one situation. If you're trying to hammer out, maybe you got in one meeting where you're doing a lot of sales calls. So it depends on what I'm doing in that day, and I'll think, what energetics do I need in that day? If I'm having like meetings, I'm going to want to get myself in a cheerful mood. I want to get myself in a modality where I'm blending my energy with the people for win. I'm going to want to, think about like specifically what energies would I need, good listening skills. Do I need to be confident, compassionate? And depending on what's happening in that specific meeting, I might bring in different energetics. And this is something I teach people, is how to get really present and think about, what energies do I need to be really optimal in this situation?
So in that kind of coaching area
Mhm,
for you, like when you're working with somebody, is
mhm.
it sometimes is it questions that you have them ask themselves before going into that meeting or before going into their own day where it gets crazy, just taking a
Yeah,
minute?
well,
Or what does that look like for them?
yeah, that's a great question. So here's a new concept that I like talking. I think is about self-awareness, but I call it like, what is your spiritual edge? Which is, if they're having a session with me, I'm like, look, getting people to change is sometimes challenging. That people have there's a lot of reasons why they're resistant to change, and I could talk a lot about that. But if you actually talk to someone, like what motivates them, what's hot for them, that's a good place to start. Because then you got their attention. I could throw in a technique or whatever, but if it's not fitting with them, so usually I like to help see what's on their mind and then meet them where they're at. That's a spiritual, like if you're in the coaching profession, the healing session, you always want to keep meeting the world or the person where it's at, because that's where you're going to be effective. That's why being present or being in the now is so important. You want to be attuned to what's happening right now, because that's got people's attention, their energies,
Mhm.
and then that can unfold. So yeah, so you want to get in sense of like, where's the pain point? What is it? What's the one thing is like, what is the persistent problem that I'm having trouble overcoming? Is a good question to
That's a
ask
great
if you're getting
question.
into like a coaching call. Or hey, what obstacle do you have right now? Or maybe there's like, maybe they're not sure of what to do next, and like that some people think that's like a lack of self-awareness, but I'm actually like, no, that is self-awareness. You're uncertain about what the next step is, and then we can work with that energy, and we can
Mhm.
I call it like energizing the field, like for that result. We can really focus on that.
Yeah, that's
uh,
interesting because sometimes when I work with like clients, and I usually deal in the strategy for a lot of various different things. And that could be like a health strategy, a business strategy,
yep.
just overall like personal development strategy. And I read this book called The One Thing.
Mm,
And the way that they explain doing certain things
mm,
one step at a time. And
mm,
they used a study done with dominoes where they started it with a 3 centimeter tall domino. It doubles in size for what it can actually hit next and knock over. So a three
right.
centimeter domino can hit over a 6 centimeter, and the six
Mm,
can hit the 12 centimeter. And they did this experiment where it knocked over all the dominoes to all the way to 3 feet tall. And when
mm,
it knocked over the 3 feet tall, obviously it's like sitting up the ground. And it's
mm,
crazy to think that the tiniest little thing can actually accomplish the greatest feat. And focusing in on just that, like you said in a way earlier, stacking and looking at things like that. It said that success isn't spontaneous, it's a
mm.
sequence. That there's a
Yes.
sequence to success and happiness, and most great things in life are sequential. You have
Yes.
to have a bit of a process that allows the unfolding to do, and I think that's even how the brain works and how the universe presents itself, right? If you're focused in on something and it sees you achieving this one
Mhm.
thing, God will provide the resources for the next thing. And if you're just focused on one at a time, then you'll get over. And this doesn't mean maybe too micro details, because I see a lot of people struggling with small things. They're cleaning up the little thing in their kitchen for like too long. You know what I mean? Or like they don't know how to outsource, which I work with people to help do that because
Hmm.
sometimes it's too micro. I'm like, don't focus on little things. I'm talking about focus on one very important thing. And one of the questions that I ask my clients is, what is one thing you can do that makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And that kind of
Nice.
dropping in question is, oh, actually just doing this. If I got this done today, a lot of this other stuff is like I wouldn't even need to do, or it just makes everything else flow. So whatever that means for some people, I don't know what you take from that, but
Yeah, you're hitting on this idea of where's the leverage? Where's the one little thing action that can make the biggest difference? And that's going to be constantly changing. And you're also speaking to the process of transformation. And there's a lot of steps to it. This is what I studied. I studied organizational change, organizational development, change management is another word for it. But each change management has like a lot of little steps. And what that's one thing is a lot of people who don't have that background don't understand that if you do something in an order, like you've got to go through the season of discover, like what's the real problem before you can get to the solution, right? And then sometimes the transformation process has lots of stages to it. Maybe you need to work with other people. Maybe you need to build new skills. Part of discover is also like learning that whatever the quote unquote problem is, you can only control yourself. So once you get out of this like victim and start blaming the government or your friend or your parents or whatever, it's like, dude, you're only in control of you. Like they're them, now what's your chess move? Like, how are you going to make the best? What's the next little baby step? And one of the
mm-hmm.
most important things in transformation is celebration of that baby steps. Every day, check out, look at, figure out what are those little baby steps you're going to do, and then jump up and around. Yeah, I did it, because momentum is everything.
Ooh, yeah.
There's this
Energetically, you're
quote.
excited for finishing something.
Yes. I want to talk about karma because people have a really not the proper understanding of what that word means. People think I lied to someone, so then it's going to come back and smack me. I'm going to get a God smack or something. That's not really
Yeah,
what
yeah.
karma means. Karma actually means momentum. And it's a word for momentum. So we have a lot of habits because we've been doing the same thing and we've been thinking the same way of things, and that's your karma. In other words, that's the momentum of your life is currently going. But we can change our karma. So one thing about karma, a lot of people think they're doing the wrong thing or they're off. I actually think that's not a healthy, not the most optimal way of thinking about things. You're developing, let's say you're going in a way that's suboptimal, it's not your greatest leverage, but you had to go down that path so you got to the, like, what I call the enough of this moment where you're like, I don't want to do that pattern anymore, and you just got sick of doing it. And that's an important place, and it should be celebrated when you realize, instead of beating yourself, oh, why did I do that thing for so long, just celebrate it. I figured out that one. I don't need to do that one anymore, and now I'm ready to do like a new pattern. And so when people understand that there are these like seasons of change and little baby steps, and they get aligned with them. And so my vision for the future is to work with other beautiful souls who want to create a better earth and make the process of transformation into a fun game. Let's gamify. Everyone's growing up playing like video games and stuff. Let's make transformation super fun and magical. And the more we all get aligned with how transformation actually works, the faster we're going to create a beautiful earth.
Yeah, that's an awesome statement. And one other question I just thought about,
Sure.
which is you're talking about people going through their transformation, right? I'm just
Mhm.
wondering two things is like, one, what does it look like when someone is transforming? I imagine there's got to be some kind of like ego death, and there's a letting go and almost like a, not the regretfulness, but just, I like what you said. Some people are going, and there's a quote that said, you don't want to go through life and find out at the end that you got good at the wrong thing. And
Mm.
sometimes people are thinking about right now, probably listening, just they're thinking about they're doing something, and maybe they're regretful about, oh man, I've been doing this for 5 years. I made a transformation, or I'm trying to do something different with my life.
Yeah.
But then they feel regretful. I spent 5 years doing this thing, and now I feel like I'm letting it go. And so but it's also part of that transformation, because it could be like letting go of a relationship or friends, or it could be a
Sure.
job, a career. How does that affect them? And how do they move through that process like smoother?
Yeah, that's a great. First off, compassion. Compassion is, in the Buddhist words, is actually wisdom. Compassion is also about having what I call a contextual understanding of life, which means that the reason why you're doing something, or and this is universally true, is there's a set of factors that sent your life in a certain karmic direction, like momentum, whatever it's. Maybe you saw your parents do it a certain way and you copied them, and then the culture reinforced it. And that's how things happen, guys. And if you want to just to have compassion with the different factors, in integral theory, they have a really simple way of understanding context, which is they divide it into these four quadrants. And they just say there's like the four quadrants are two individual and two collective. There's like stuff happening in our psychology, right? Our values, the way we thought about things. Then there's like our behavior and our health. And then on the system level, there's the culture. The culture just means the norms. And that could be like the culture of your country, the culture of your family, or whatever groups that you happen to hang out with, any kind of subculture. If you're like ingesting a bunch of material, whether it's Republican or Democrat or conspiracy, or he's like really into an entertainment or a sports culture, they all have norms and you were always ingesting that. And then there's like these systems that are in there, like the government system, the planetary system. I know you had Ricardo on the other day, which I'm a huge fan of. And the astrology, a healthy way of understanding astrology, I think, is that those energies from the planets are just another force that are on us. Are they totally predictive of something? I would say no, but there also are real energy and they have an influence on things just the way your mind has an influencing. And so the quadrants contextual understanding is understanding there are these different forces. So stop beating yourself up if you think that that doesn't really help. You want to get to the point of, okay, I learned that lesson and radical compassion. I must have done that because of the context. And now I'm ready for something new. And so that's a more healthier way. And also, I think it's good to like mourning, like there are different stages to it. If you're like ending a relationship or a certain way of things, a good practice might be like feel the loss of it, allow yourself to feel the emotions. One of the, again, I've studied all this Buddhist stuff, is to really be okay with it is and be with the full range. And the more you're able to be with the emotions as they are, then what they do is they self-arise and they self-liberate, and then you move on. And so if you're ending a way of being, then just mourn it a little bit for however long as you need to, and thank it. Also, thank you for teaching me that lesson. Sometimes it can be frustrating. It took a long time, but you eventually got there and you're just like, hey, thanks for being an obstacle. And because life is a series of learning lessons. And the more we align with that rather than fight it, your life's going to
Hmm.
be better. So, yeah, I think that's a great question.
Yeah. And the other thing was like, let's just say they're looking for, and maybe the result isn't actually what they should be searching for. But if somebody is going through the transformation, what can they look forward to? Who are they going to
Yeah.
be? How is it going to look different? And then what are their relationships going to look like? Now everybody's different, but I'm just asking, someone might be going through it. And
Mhm.
the question of what are they waiting for, or what's on the other side of where they're at, basically.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I think what's good is like whatever version of ourself we are now and then we have desires, right? And then so this is like the natural flow of life. So as you're saying is as you're letting something go, it's also good to focus on, oh, this is now opening up space for me to chase this next desire. And then I teach people how to energize the field, like energetically, to move towards it and start to map out what are the steps you need to do and what are the energies you need to bring, what are the perspectives, what are the habits. So this is the kind of thing I would offer in my individual, my group coaching, my online courses, is how to do this, how to break down the process of transformation into these little baby steps. I do want to
Mhm.
like circle back to something you talked about, because there's so much
Please, yeah.
confusion about this word about ego death and what does that actually mean. And I feel like there's like endless confusion around that. My ego's
Please
bad,
clarify.
or yeah. First off, if you look up the word ego, it just means like a sense of self. And some people know about Buddhism, there's something called like the no self kind of concept. But you really can't come from nowhere. The goal isn't to come from nowhere. It gets back to this thing I talked about earlier about reification and openness. It's about a solid sense of self. If you have a solid identity, then it stifles growth. And growth is the natural inclination. So the goal actually is to loosen up your ideas and be more open to see as life is unfolding. Generally, if you do that, life will end up being more magical than you already imagined it could be, because it's actually, you're getting in your own way by having these solid structures. The natural flow of life is to try something out, and let's see if this works. And then we study it and we like this about it, but we didn't like that about it. And then we upgrade it. And if we just understand, like, hey, this is how the human mind works. We like to optimize things. At times, we like to freeze them a little bit so we can get intimate with it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with temporarily freezing things. And sometimes some like truths might stay forever. Who knows? It's like the way I go about things. I think is true, but I'm not 100% attached. If somebody comes up with more powerful information, of course I'm going to listen to it. So this sense of openness to the wonder and mystery and new perspectives is the path of continuous awakening. So here's what's really important about ego death, or what the people call, I don't think it's the greatest word choices, but when I want people to get really compassionate when think about you're in a baby and you're in a womb. You're literally like in another dimension of reality. You're like in your mom's stomach or uterus, and you're like, whatever. Your life is like, your eyes are closed. I don't even remember what it's like, but it's gotta be. And then you shoot out of your mother's vagina, and whoa, there's a lot of light, and that's gotta be crazy. Just think about, that's like literally all of a sudden you just shoot up on another planet. Like, radical compassion. Like, some part of us is probably freaked out. What's going on? I feel safe in this thing, and now you're pushing me out of this crazy tunnel, and all of a sudden I'm in this alien world. And what happens is some part of us gets freaked out, and there's something called defense patterns come up. Like, we get really overwhelmed by the energies, and this pattern comes up to help protect us from overwhelm. And what happens is our identity gets fused with this defense pattern. And the defense pattern then becomes like a way of being, but we forgot that's not actually who we really are. We're really this like curious being. And what happens is, that's why I think a better word for ego is actually like egoic defense pattern. And what these really good meditation techniques and psychedelics can help with is to help you to get experiences to operate beyond your defense patterns and more into this like universal mind, this Atman, as people call it, or this awakened awareness. There's a lot of traditions have different names for it. And it's a process to move out of being stuck, fused to your defense patterns and your old ways of being, and moving into this higher, more open being. And this is one of the things I specialize in. I really know it like the back of my hand, because it's been my life's journey, is to take what the Buddhists did and to learn other techniques to help people move through it. And I think if the species understood that that people are actually fused to something that's not their authentic self, and these defense patterns are built in lack. Like, the ultimate story is, I'm not able to handle life as it is. And therefore, it comes with, I need to do something to prove myself. So a lot of people associate this word with having a big ego, but it's really these defense patterns have like a structure. I think I saw on your profile you've done landmark. Is that correct though?
That's correct. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I took that class a long time ago, and I thought
Mhm.
it was helpful. I don't know if you took like the advanced class, but in the second class, they break down and they talk about the structure, where it has this egoic structure, has a mask we put on, like we pretend to be something that we're not, to overcompensate for these inadequate feelings. And there's a really good book called The Five Personality Patterns by Stephen Kessler, and he's really hammered it down to these kind of 5 types. So if you really want to improve your self-awareness of some of the deeper structures of your mind, that's a good book to start with. It'll help you start to see some patterns, and it's got some solutions into that. And that's a model, one of the many models I like, archetypal models I like to use to help people discover their suboptimal patterns and what are the known ways of transcending that. And in terms of stacking, also, we could talk about, I'm very experienced with psychedelics, and how do
Mhm.
you merge psychedelics with other tools to help you move beyond your defense patterns and move towards your dreams. So that'd be another area we could explore.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking about a couple things, which is like the way that I was thinking about that ego death is like perception of self that is you're done with it in a sense. Like
Hmm.
you're like forgiving yourself, or you're moving forward from that sense of self that you thought you
Yeah.
were. And that was what I was referring to earlier when I was thinking about just all the
Well, that's
things
a
that I
part of
thought
it.
I
Yeah.
was interested in, or like the person that I thought I wanted to be in the world. And that's super interesting. One other thing I thought about was
Sure.
you said something about trying new things and being able to be open to those types of patterns. And I think about that, and I really think people need to look at things And again, not being in a place where they are going to be afraid that they're going to do stuff and then they're going to regret it because, oh man, I spent a year doing that. I think that people need to realize, okay, if I'm going to try something new and exciting, they're going to know
Yep.
it's new and exciting in the moment. So then there's going to be that trial period. So I tell people, have a trial begin and end, like genuine checking in. This can go for relationships. I had a relationship when I was like 21 years old. I told this girl I was dating, I said, I would love to be your boyfriend for a year. And I said, because after a year, I would love for us to have dinner and actually remember this day. And it was October 27th. I said, let's have dinner next year on October 27th and check in and see if we want to even continue this relationship, but go through everything we want to go through together, like the ups and the downs and everything. And we could be in this relationship. It was the weirdest thing. And this like 21-year-old mind that came up with this idea of a trial. Now that sounds horrible to some people, like some women out there thinking, oh my God, I would never, you need to be committed to love. And that's the romanticism of it. But the realistic, practical part of me is just like, no, let's give it all and just give it a try. And it's funny because after a year, we had dinner. Same thing, October 27th. I followed through with that. And the walk away statement from that entire dinner was, we really love each other and we really care deeply about each other. And we really enjoy each other's relationship with each other.
Mm-hmm.
However, we know we're not supposed to be together forever. And we know we're not supposed to be married. That was like the conclusion of the dinner. So it wasn't like we knew we wanted to break up, but we were also thinking, okay, but we know this will not be forever. Like we're destined to probably be friends. And it was a weird like relief to know that we had the check-in coming up. Like throughout that year, we would laugh about it and be like, oh, don't worry, we're gonna check in. But just to have that and then be like, the pressure was just released when we had that check-in. And we were like, we'll stay together. There's no reason to break up, right? Like we know we're not be together but there's no reason to break up. Let's keep experiencing one another. Very interesting. Again, this is me at 20. Then I was like 22.
Yeah.
But I think the point being about it was just to look at things for people and look at, okay, look, you're really excited about something. You want to make a change, but give it a try and then check in with yourself after a week, after a month, after however long you do something. Because a lot of people have different practices, different diets, different everything, but it's genuine. Make your commitment and feel strongly about it. However, definitely have a trial period. Doesn't mean you're not committed to losing weight or whatever. It just means that check in with your body, do an assessment on many things. Just always have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
That was one thing about it that you were sharing. I just thought that occurred to me that people might need to hear that.
Yeah. Can I add something to that? That's great. Everything you
Please,
said is spot on. Yeah. I think it's mindset's really important. So I think if you really want to get the most out of something, you want to start with this kind of what I call optimistic neutrality. So what does I mean by that is a lot of times we sabotage things like a lot. Like we have, I know transformation programs suck and sure I'll give it a try, but I know it's not going to work. You've already sabotaged it before you even started. So that mindset's not going to get you what you want. But you also don't want to be like one of those people who's, I know this is it. I know it's the one. It's the thing that will change me forever. And then you're like glued to something that's not really working. And so the best way to get something out of something is to be like, okay, I'm gonna commit to trying this out like forever, whatever period you decide to try it out, and I'm gonna assess it from an objective perspective. Maybe I come up with some metrics around, is this working? How can I tell or not? And what are you trying to get out of it? It was a good question to start with. If you're trying something new, what are your expectations? And then if you start measuring something based on what your values are for that thing, that would be like a healthy thing. Then it's not just, am I feeling it or not? It's more, okay, I'm actually going into this. You're living life intentionally. You want to live an intentional life. And the universe honors intention. From what I've discovered, the more precise I am with my intentions, or I help my clients with their intentions, the more the responses. There's this precision of intention, but there's also this precision of understanding the patterns of life. And then when we put those together, that's when the magic really gets happen. We're optimizing life in its highest expression, like looking at the different points and seeing how they stack together in a way that's intelligent.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely brilliant. I hope people like take notes on that because that's awesome.
Thanks.
And I think that for you, what, because you mentioned like a new world
Mm.
earlier. And so I'm just curious from your vision, and it's not your vision to have, right? Because this is a collaborative effort.
Yeah, yeah.
However, I would ask, what do you think that looks like for you? What is this new world that we're moving into? And we cannot see it. We can see it unfolding. Those of us who
Uh-huh.
are awakened, right? That one question answer.
Yeah, that's
But
a
what does that
great
look like for
question.
you?
I can answer it in multiple ways. There's what I see it like way out, and then there's what I see are the next steps. But I'm gonna start with first off, I think it's I desire to see happy people's souls. Like I believe that it's actually possible, not tomorrow, but if we focused on it, that everyone can win at life together. And what do I mean by win? We feel peace in our minds and our hearts, and that everyone has an opportunity to manifest what's in their heart as long as it's not violent. So I start from, as a premise from there that that would be a good place to start. And I've really been studying a lot with about energy and how do we use our energy more intelligent. And I've come to realize that this thing I mentioned already about defense patterns is a big deal. It's a high leverage point. We talked about leverage. And I realized that a lot of this scarcity mindset is because everyone's walking around thinking they're inadequate, thinking they got to prove something to someone, thinking other people are out to get them or whatever. And we're all divided up, fighting each other. And we forgot that we're all like one species. In my opinion, we're all just God talking to each other. I actually think everybody's the ultimate reality. I'm what's called a non-dual person. That's what I believe in my heart. I believe everyone is a perfect divine creation. Even people who's done awful things that I don't approve of, if they've done things that are lack integrity, it's because they're wounded. And I believe everyone has a divine right to heal. And so I love to help people see that this is what's really happening and really start focusing on more peaceful minds and also more focus on energy. Where are we focusing our energy? What if I was had ultimate, like if I was a super influencer, I would say, hey, why don't we pay attention? How much energy are we paying on like defense, like building up like giant nuclear weapons and armies and locking our doors and whatever? What if we as a species learned a different way of resolving conflict? So I would like, let's train up some really high evolved facilitators, conflict resolution specialists, and what if we focused on conflict resolution as a species and we learned how, as a species, to talk out our differences and that actually there is enough here for everyone to have the quote unquote good life? And then we stop spending all this energy on fighting in ways that are very unproductive. I have some simple solutions. Why don't we like help people get their energy in a higher place before they have a big negotiation? Like maybe use the stacking techniques. I could help the participants get in a state that's like why they're going through the negotiations. They're in a more enlightened, by enlightened, they're more aware of what is in the different dynamics. And if we did that as a species, then we could stop spending all this money on weapons and fighting and divide and conquer. We accept, hey, we're all one species and we don't really need to be killing each other. And watch what the energy of the planet, I would guarantee, would totally shift. We'd have all this energy we're spent on fighting each other. We'll have productive conversations, and then that energy can then put into abundance and wellness and healing people's minds and bodies and heightening their creativity. So that would, to me, would be like a pathway to a better world.
Wow, that's a powerful way to look at it. I don't know what I thought of El Salvador, the one that's like been going crazy. I don't know
Mm,
why. I just thought about a country that's not at war. So they're not at war, except they have some cartel, some internal issues. And I just
right.
thought of it takes probably a people or a group or a country that's not in conflict with others, but they're also harboring maybe that energy, like you're saying, like a Costa Rica or some kind of other country that's
Yeah.
like actually harboring more of that energy and can be an example to the world or their neighbors in their neighboring country. Almost that's large scale, obviously. But if
Yeah.
the nature
An
of the
example.
country was focused on these things and these developments, it's like the game Civilization, where you have to like build libraries in order for your
Mm,
people to like could continue to grow and
mm,
culturally and stuff like that. It's really interesting. I completely agree, man. Having
Oh,
programs that
thanks.
and maybe even initiate these types of things and these types of
Hmm.
programs like that would create that thing and invite all these healers and people to collaborate with really awesome people. I just met like a neuroscientist who interviews other corporate CEOs that are trying to hire. So then when a
Hmm.
corporation is trying to hire a new executive team or the CEO, they have these third party people like these neuroscientists come in and do a self assessment, like an assessment of the neurological capabilities of this new interviewee to go in. And it's almost like the same thing where you've got to do that with heads of state or negotiating teams or like trade and barters, like the whole thing that we do is like nation to nation. That's
Hmm.
powerful, man. Those are large scale
Thanks.
things. Yeah. And I think,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Costa Rica because I lived there half a year. Last year I was there for 7 months, and I got a car down there, and there's a lot of intentional communities. So that could definitely, I think there's going to be certain hotspots where like people are going to aggregate and lead by example. I believe, so again, my background was in change management. So there's something called push change and pull change. So push change is this like top down, like the new world order, president's going to say something like of a company or whatever, we're all going to do this thing. And that's like very, feels like a lot of force. I'm a volunteerist. And so the pull change is totally different. It's like where a bunch of people get together and that they create something epic and they like, hey, we figured something cool out. You want to check it out? And then other people check it out and they're like, oh, wow, that's awesome. And then it just spreads. And so it's more like a magnetizer for goodness and the good life and more peaceful abundance, multidimensional peaceful abundance and creativity and fun and but also productivity. And why can't we mix the two? Why do they have to be separate? Why can't we have be fun and productive at the same time? I think I've actually noticed like I get my energetics up and then my productivity goes wild. So I'll have like periods of 2 or 3 hours where I'll do like a morning routine or something. I'll get my energy in the perfect state and then I'll just nail it. I'll crush it. And then I got the whole afternoon to relax. It's a much smarter way of working. And so I love teaching people how to get their energy up and get their focus up and align their energetics with their context. And if we
that's a
start
huge
doing that
life.
as a species,
I was
I
going to
think it's
say,
like
yeah,
game over. Yeah.
exactly. If you take that and you quantum leap, like what that looks like for the man, because America definitely needs that kind of help. I would say Costa Rica is probably awesome, like mostly healthy people. And even when I live in Boulder and stuff, that was a culture shock, to be honest, coming from Texas to
Mm,
Boulder. Not everyone, let's just say the majority of people who live here, if they're not college students getting drunk every day, they are relatively healthy and actually probably in some cases extremely healthy. It was funny. I was telling somebody that in Texas, I got to teach people what supplements are. Like, oh, you
mm,
should take vitamins and you should definitely take care of yourself with these various things. And I have to teach them that exists. Whereas in Boulder, it's
mm.
almost like they're like supplement snobs. Like they have, oh no,
Yeah.
I only go this company and this is the
Right.
but this it's all good. I'm like it was a culture shock to see look how healthy and awesome and productive everyone is here. Like people are focused, they're not overweight, and nothing against anyone who's obese or
Yeah.
anything. It's just more like realistic. Hey man, like these people are healthy, they're mindful, they're biking at 70 years old. It's just like cool. And that's
Yeah.
what elevates the consciousness of this community. I think that's why people tend to stick around here. It's just because man, when you're around other healthy, awesome minded people who mean and are generous and honest and have integrity and things like that, like shit, that makes a difference, bro. And that even just on a
Yeah.
little community, it makes a huge difference. And just to wrap up the call here, I wanted to ask
Sure.
you something really, which just generally, which is like, what do you think is maybe something that's important or significant that you think people should know as we wrap this up? Like, what else do you think people should know about themselves, about the world, maybe even just in general? What is that for you that comes up for you?
I'm getting to hammer a point that I've started to talk about, but is like a game changer. And I'm getting to talk about energy first and also about who are you, like at the deepest level of understanding, which is something new. But what I've discovered is like when you ask first, like, what energy level am I at? What energy level do I need to be at? And you learn to make that a conscious habit, it changes everything because a lot of people think whatever energy stories are coming up, they think that's them. So the second thing I tell all my clients to use this phrase: my thoughts, feelings, sensations, experiences 100% contingent on my energy level. And I have them say it over and over and over again until they realize, they detach, that whatever story that they think they are, like if they're having some story like I'm a loser or whatever, it's because that's your energy's low. And I bet if you're having a high energy experience, then you wouldn't be having that story. The other thing I teach people is to the only thing that like is like who you really are is this idea of a witness. Like your core self is just witnessing everything that's happening in its field, whether it's a thought or a feeling or a sensation or a story. And when you start to practice being this witness and have everything else just be open to interpretation, you don't get lost in these big energy drops where you get sucked into some story from the past that you think's true, but it really isn't true. It's just based on some your context of the past. And then the thing is about another big thing is orienting. What are you referencing? Are you referencing some trauma from your past? If your energy's dropping, I bet it is. Or are you referencing your highest dreams and aspirations? When you go about your life, it's good to start focusing on the future that you're trying to create and ask yourself, is the actions and that I'm doing right now, are they aligned to get me to where I need to go? Or am I just playing out some pattern from the past? And start to train yourself to start referencing, figuring out what is the future that you want to create. And even if you don't know, just what is the next step? Maybe you don't know, but the next step is to experiment with different things or whatever, and to energize the field towards the progress that you're trying to create. And the self-fulfilling prophecy is a big deal. And the stories we tell ourselves are so critical. So the last thing I just want to hammer through is the importance of story. And so my story is everyone is the ultimate reality, experiencing itself to know what it means to be alive. And we're definitely going to succeed. We're all going to have like heaven on earth is already right here. It's just a perception switch. And it's going to feel more and more like that when people realize that life is a gift. You are a magical gift. And if we trust and we have faith that our minds, bodies, spirits are going to figure out this period of time, it seems chaotic and a lot of people think it's like the end of the world or whatever. No, this is the point. This is the perfect context of which change can happen. Like a narrative, like I'm saying, would not be able to go through like in the 80s when the economy's going bonkers and everyone's happy. But when people are dissatisfied with life, then they're open to new things. Hey, maybe I'll try something out and see how it works. So I invite people to, yeah, have faith that these are blessed times and work should be excited to be alive. And we're all co-creators of this new earth. So it's not like just going to happen. There's not going to be some like Jesus is going to come from the sky and change everything. That's a BS narrative. And no offense to that, is we all have to be the change. I believe in something called Christ consciousness, which is the same thing as Buddhism or like soul intelligence, is this idea that we all can connect to these higher energies. The higher energies is the thing that I was talking about earlier. It's when you learn to operate beyond your defense patterns and get these higher, what's called like unbound energies. You start referencing the future, and we can do this as a species together and it will go a lot faster. It's probably going to start with people who are already awake to it, who are going to do it more and more in intentional communities, and they're going to get really good at it, and it's just going to spread. And eventually, before we know it, we're just going to be like, polarization, what was that? What? We'll laugh about it. Oh, we used to do those silly things like divide and conquer and false flags, and now it's just
Mhm.
silly. So that's the vision I'm seeing going forward.
I love that, man. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think for me, it was like just what I asked earlier, which is what do people expect to feel like when they're transforming? It's not good. Sometimes it's not good, right? It doesn't, you're transforming. So you're looking forward to being the next you, but there's got to be that process of, ooh, we're going to clean all this up.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
Well,
what's happening on the world scale in a way, right? Like you said, like this is actually the greatest opportunity to make transformation because of the craziness of the world. Like you said, the 80s, oh,
yeah.
everyone's happy. And it's
Can
like,
I just
yeah,
say
no,
something
I
about that really quickly?
completely, yeah,
Celebrate
yeah.
the messiness instead of making it wrong. Oh, we screwed up in the past. It's like, oh, take a different perspective. Try on like maybe I'm ready. Maybe the world's ready for something new, and also be okay with it not feeling okay. Like the actually trying to making it when it's feeling wrong, and then you making it wrong, it's just gonna come make more wrong. And so like just be okay with like it feeling icky and then let that pass. Like it just let that you be with that for a little bit and it's oh, I'm done with that feeling. It's processed and I'm ready to try something new. And
Mm.
that's like the nature of the flow of Buddha mind, is allows to be with like what is, and then eventually, if you just be with what it is, it's called the highest level practice. It's called self-arising, self-liberating. You just let it happen, and eventually it gets sick of itself, that perspective or story, and it's, I don't want to do that anymore, and it just drifts away.
Yeah, because I feel the same way sometimes where you're stuck in like nothing else matters besides what's bothering me right now. And you get
Mm,
trapped, and then people take actions in that trapped state of mind. I'm like, no, dude. I
mm,
always say to people, like, never quit on a bad day, but that also
mm.
refrains to never make bold decisions in a bad attitude. If you're
Yeah.
like, I'm breaking up with you because your words matter, and then intention matters too. So, like, you don't have to decide.
Yes.
Like, things could be boiling over for people. This isn't the moment to decide what's gonna go forward.
Yeah.
This is gonna be the
Yes.
moment to, like, no, actually do nothing. Like the act of just none of this matters. Try to disassociate and sleep on it. Like that concept people say, just sleep on it. It's
That
true. Just really try that on.
Yeah, what you said is brilliant, bro. It's really like what I was saying before, is never, if you're going to have a serious conversation about making real agreements that have real consequence, let's make sure both people are in a good state of mind and with
That's
the
right.
best intentions. It's, I'm going to be authentic, and I'm going to try my best, and I'm going to bring my highest upper mental and my soul, my full soul to this, because it matters. And if we're not in that state, then no big decisions. Let's just sleep on it, and we'll come back to it at another
That
time.
is solid, dude. Solid. How do people find you, man? I'll put a link in the chats and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
How do people work with you?
Yeah. So my website is my last name, which is Mozenter. So www. Mozenter is just spelled MOZ, then the word enter, ENTER.com. And go there. You can also email me at my name, which is Jonathan@Mozenter.com. So JONATHAN@MOZENTER.com. And if you want to send me an email, say you're interested in working with me one on one, or if you're interested in working in a group or a course, I'm going to be starting groups and courses in January. And I'm taking like lists for that for people who are interested. So it's just the perfect time to get involved, and I can help you with your transformation.
Thanks, bro. That was awesome, man. I'll put all those things in the links. Send me those things all over. We'll rock and roll. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Always enjoy our chats.
All righty, brother. Peace.
Peace. Bye. Bye, Dylan.